And the Prime Minister says those who can work should, as the government unveils £5 billion in cuts to welfare.
Yes, I'll be looking at what those changes mean and who will be most affected.
The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, has said those who can work should, as his government announced a £5 billion cut to the cost of welfare.
This morning, we're going to ask what it all means. But the rules on who is eligible for the main disability benefit, the personal independence payment, they will be tightened and other payments lowered. This is the biggest cut to welfare in a decade, with some Labour MPs and charities calling the plans immoral. Here's our political correspondent, Helen Catt.
Secretary of State for Works and Pensions, Liz Kendall.
It was a packed House of Commons that heard Liz Kendall set out sweeping reforms to benefits. Now the focus turns to working out precisely who will be affected. Georgina, who has multiple sclerosis, is one of those who believes she will lose out. She currently claims the disability benefit known as PIP, and the criteria is being tightened.
I will lose the living component of my PIP payment, which equates to about £290 a month. The money I get from PIP I spend on my health to keep me away from the NHS. So all of my money goes on things like neurophysio that costs me £120 an hour, and I have 2 sessions a month.
The government hopes the welfare bill will be £5 billion lower than it would otherwise be in 2030, with most of that coming from restricting PIP. And it's making other changes too. As well as tightening the criteria for PIP, the assessment for it will become the only test for getting health-related benefits. What's called the Work Capability Assessment will be scrapped by 2028. The standard allowance for universal credit will go up by more than prices, but the top-up given to those who are ill will reduce. And there'll be extra money for people who have lifelong conditions that mean they will never work and they will never be reassessed. Liz Kendall also confirmed that PIP would not be frozen, and the part which is awarded for mobility needs won't be changed.
It's a win for me, really. I still work full-time. I still have my children 4 days a week. So that that mobility component of the PIP is what keeps me working and keeps me being able to do the things with my children that I wouldn't be able to do without it.
The government won't say how many people it thinks will be affected by its changes until independent forecasts are published next week.
They will set out those figures in the spring statement. We'll also publish our poverty impact assessment and equality impact assessment. And our objective is to tackle that poverty by helping people into good work.
There was a lot in the government statement, some of which will now go out for consultation, as MPs, charities, economists and, most of all, people who depend on the welfare system start to work out exactly what the consequences will be. Helen Catt, BBC News, Westminster.
Where we're discussing the government's plans for changes to the benefits system aimed at cutting £5 billion from the benefits bill by the end of this decade.
Well, Ben is here to take us through some of the key changes. And this is really important, Ben, isn't it? Because people will want to know what's happening.
Yes, a lot of detail in this announcement. It'll affect many people, and it all comes ahead of the Chancellor's update on the public finances, which she'll deliver to Parliament and to the nation next week. So let me run through some of the main points around the welfare changes. Good morning. The Work and Pensions Secretary made a whole raft of announcements covering a wide range of benefits. 2 of the biggest account for most of the billions spent on welfare. Now, one of those is universal credit. It's one of the main benefits in the UK. It's paid to about 7.5 million people. For those who get it and are looking for work, there will be above inflation increases to the basic payment in each of the next 5 years. The Work Capability Assessment will be scrapped in 2028. Now, this is the test for determining if someone should get a health or disability-related top-up known as incapacity benefit. It will be rolled instead into another system. But those with serious long-term conditions who can never work won't have to be reassessed. People under the age of 22 will no longer be able to claim the incapacity benefit top-up to universal credit. The aim is to make sure young people have work and training rather than, as the government puts it, a pathway to economic inactivity. Next, some big changes to personal independence payments. These are paid to people in England and Wales who have difficulty completing everyday tasks like washing or cooking, or getting around due to long-term physical or mental health conditions. It's not means-tested, and it's available to people who are working. It will go up in line with inflation this year, but from the end of next year, there will be a stricter criteria to determine who's eligible. So many people's payments may be reduced. And as with incapacity benefit, people with the most serious conditions will no longer need to be reassessed, although there may be more reassessments for other people. It's important to remember that these PIPs are not paid in Scotland, so the UK government will reflect any savings made by cutting the amount it gives to the Scottish government by a comparable level. The UK government says reform is needed to encourage people back into work, so there will be a new so-called right to try to return to work without someone's benefits being at risk. And £1 billion will be invested in a support package to encourage people who are out of work back into it. The Work and Pensions Secretary, Liz Kendall, claims these moves will save something like £5 billion by 2030. And she told the BBC's political editor, Chris Mason, that the current system is unsustainable.
When you have a system where 1,000 new claims for PIP are awarded every single day,
personal independence payments.
You know, personal independence payments, that's the equivalent of adding a city the size of Leicester every single year. And my real concern is that's not sustainable for the future, not only for taxpayers, but for the very people who need a social security system there for them when they need it. And that's what we're determined to deliver.
Now, we know this is affecting so many people. If you'd like to get in touch, you can contact Your Voice, Your BBC News. Maybe you're worried about what the implications will be for you. Maybe you're someone who is encouraged to get back to work and away from benefits. You can send us a message on WhatsApp or email. Just scan the QR code on your screen at the moment. The thing is with this, Sally and John, a lot of detail there. Two bits of advice: if people want to watch that back, it's on iPlayer, they can watch it later, what I've been through. Or there's some of our brilliant colleagues on News Online have written it up in all the detail, changes to the eligibility, how that will affect people, the scoring system. It's all there on the BBC News website and the app. It's worth having a look if people are concerned about how it might affect them.
That's really useful, Ben. Thank you.
We're going to hear from the government a bit later and from the Conservatives, but right now, breakfast, we can speak to the Liberal Democrat spokesperson for Health and Social Care, Helen Morgan. Good morning to you. Should we just start at its broadest? What do you, as Liberal Democrats, make of what Liz Kendall announced yesterday?
Well, I think we've all agreed that we need to see more people back into work, that's better than being on benefits in the very long term. But as Liberal Democrats, we're concerned that the government isn't gripping the cause of the problem, which is the crisis in the NHS and in social care. They've kicked the can down the road on social care reform. They've cut some of the key targets in the NHS, such as mental health waiting lists. And we're really keen to see people, moved into a position where they're well enough to go to work, rather than just having their benefits removed if they're not.
OK, so it sounds like, as far as the cuts announced yesterday are concerned, though, you would accept those.
Well, I think, as I say, we need to look at them in the round, and I think some of the devil of the detail will come out over the next couple of days, because we've only had that one sort of quite brief statement in the Commons so far. There are elements of it, obviously, that we'd support, but we are concerned that cutting personal independence payments for people who are in work is problematic, because they need those independence payments to stay in work. And we're also concerned that some of those people that aren't able to work will see their payments cut too. So let's look over the detail in the coming days. But in the meantime, we're really keen to see the government tackle those long mental health waiting lists, which they've removed the targets for. And we're really keen to see them tackle the crisis in social care, which keeps many people out of work because they're caring for somebody who can't access support from their local authority.
The last time there was an attempt to cut the welfare bill by this kind of amount, this significantly, was between 2010, 2015, when you, as Liberal Democrats, were in coalition with the Conservatives, the so-called austerity years. So I guess Labour might say, well, it's a bit rich for you to criticise cuts when you cut yourselves.
Well, I think the worst cuts came from 2015 onwards, actually, when we weren't there to sort of rein in the government. But we are in 2025 and we need to focus on what is going to get people back into work now. If we look across Europe, they haven't got the same problem as us. And largely that's because they don't have the crisis in their health and care systems. And so that's why we really want to see the government tackle the crisis in the NHS and really deal with this social care review, which has been promised to us. It's been kicked down the road to 2028, which is too late. The cross-party talks that were promised to start in February aren't even in the diary yet. So we'd really like to see the government move further and faster on those issues and deal with the problem that's in front of them.
Really, there's nothing even in the diary yet, because we were told that all parties were prepared to work together and come up with the beginnings of a plan on social care, but still nothing.
So we had a meeting planned in for earlier this month. It was cancelled at very short notice. We are promised another one, but that isn't in the diary yet, and that's very disappointing. We were told that was down to diary scheduling clashes. We don't know who can't be bothered to clear their diary for something as important as this, but we're really keen to see those talks move ahead as soon as possible.
And how do you think that would help the argument we're having at the moment about the escalating benefits bill? How would tackling social care at its simplest then reduce the benefits bill, or would it?
Well, the problem with social care is a big part of the problem in the NHS, and those big waiting lists we can see in the NHS, whether they're for elective care with more than 6.5 million people on elective care waiting lists, or whether they're for mental health, which was identified as a key issue yesterday in Liz Kendall's statement. So you can't fix the NHS without tackling that problem in social care. And then added to that are all those people who can't access social care. And so their families are plugging the gaps, behind closed doors, invisible to the rest of society. And those people often would like to be able to work more. They're very isolated and they want support to carry on providing the care to the person that they love. So there's lots of reasons why social care would really be a game changer for the NHS and for getting people back into work.
As well as looking for reform within social care and the NHS, as Lib Dems, you're also calling for cultural change at the Department for Work and Pensions. What would you like to see change there?
Well, I think our constituents, when they get in touch with us, they tell us that they have found the process very difficult, humiliating in some instances, that they feel as if the whole system is set for them to fail, and that the process is clunky and inefficient. So we think there needs to be a cultural change in the Department for Work and Pensions, as well as looking at the benefits that they're paying out.
The government have talked about changing some of the assessments, haven't they? People who are chronically long-term sick, not having to go for reassessments as regularly in the future. Do you accept that that is a move in the right direction? Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very, very sensible. We see people who've got degenerative diseases having to keep going back and proving that they haven't got any better. That's no good for them. That's part of this cultural problem that we were alluding to. So obviously that's a welcome step. OK, Helen Morgan from the Liberal Democrats, thank you for your time.
Thank you.